لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله ما لنا رب سوى لا إله إلا الله.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. لا سيما بقية الله جل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف فجعلنا من أعوانه وأنصاره. Alhamdulillah, so far we have studied different aspects of revelation in general, and then the Quranic revelation, and then we focused on Word of God according to the Quran. Now we want to move on to the main part of our discussion. So what we have said so far was mostly to prepare. And this part is mostly aiming at understanding how to interact with the Quran, how to benefit from the Quran. This is relatively new. Normally we don't discuss that much about how to interact with the Quran, how to benefit from the Quran. Maybe very little. For example, about how to recite the Quran and etiquettes of recitation of the Quran, for example. But I think we need to discuss more. So I say some of the things that I've been thinking and has come to my mind, but I hope that you can add to this, and inshallah we can develop this discussion. It should become at least a book about how to benefit from the Quran from a spiritual point of view. Some of the things that inshallah we will discuss, I give you a list of some of the things that we discuss. And if any of you is willing to give a presentation, it's very good, so you can say, next week or the week after, I want to come and give a presentation on one of these topics. One thing is about the significance of the Quran. Last semester, at the beginning of Al-Mizan, before we entered the discussion of Al-Mizan, we had a session about the significance of the Quran. So we will have a quick review of that. Some of you may not have attended that session, about the significance of Quran and the close position that the Quran has with Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. And inshallah, in particular, we will talk about Quran being and Allah. Quran being one of the things which is in the universe, which is so close to God that Quran says it's and Allah. So we will talk about this. The other thing that we will inshallah talk about it is that the Quran is protected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Quran can never be touched by falsity or falsehood or batil. Quran is completely true and truthful. This is another thing. Are you making a list? Yeah. The other thing that inshallah we will talk about it is that the Quran is always new and always fresh. Quran never becomes outdated, never expires. It's always fresh. The other thing that inshallah we will talk about it is about how to encounter in the Quran. How to encounter with the Quran. So, we will talk about looking at the Quran, Just looking at the Quran by itself is important. It's a spiritual practice. Just to look at the Quran. About carrying the Quran, about recitation of the Quran, about etiquettes of recitation, about believing in the Quran. You can be a Muslim, but still you have to believe in the Quran. It's very important. The value and the whole concept. What does it mean to believe in the Quran?
Is it possible to be Muslim and not believe in the Quran?
In this sense. Because to believe it has different. Allah said, Ya ayyuhal ladina amanu aminu. So it means that it's possible to be amanu and not amanu. So sometimes you believe in the Quran just to say, this is from God. But in the sense that we want to explain, it's different. It means that to believe wholeheartedly and to practice the Quran and take Quran as a book of guidance, not just put Quran on the shelf. For example, the Prophet said, "Ma amana bil Quran man istahalla maharimahu." So if it's a Muslim, but still commits something which is prohibited in the Quran, he is not a believer in the Quran. Although he says, "I kiss Quran," Quran is book of God, but he is not a mu'min in the Quran. Or sometimes nu'minu bi ba'z wa nakfuru bi ba'z. Sometimes. So there is a difference between believing in the Quran in a very general way and believing in the Quran as a book of life. Okay? We will talk about, inshallah, respecting the Quran, takreemul Quran, about memorization of the Quran, about learning and teaching the Quran, and about a concept which maybe somehow new. How to be addressed by the Quran. How to receive the Quran. I think there is a way in which you can reach the point that you feel that this verse of the Quran is as if it has come for you. Sometimes you get so much used to the Quran that you feel that Quran is speaking to you. Maybe I don't have this feeling. I read Quran and I don't find anything relevant to my life. But you are different. You find no. It's as if this verse is revealed today for you. It depends how familiar you are with the Quran and how much you are friend with the Quran. So for example, we have that. I think it's about Imam Zainul Abidin, if I'm not wrong. That when he was saying, for example, prayer and reciting Surah Fatiha, he was reading so much, Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in, as if it was revealed to him. Something like this about, I think, is Imam Zainul Abidin. When we reach that point, inshallah, we will find a reference. To feel that Quran is coming to you, it has a deep effect on yourself, that if you feel that God is speaking to you. Normally we think that this is something which was revealed 14 centuries ago and I'm just reviewing this. But no, Quran has this sense that it can come to you. And this is connected to the issue of Quran being fresh.
From this point of view, isn't it better for translators to translate Quran? They emphasize on translating the Quran in an old fashion.
It's better.
No, is it to change it?
Yeah, this is.
Someone say it's not the book, like Bible.
I have another view that, if you remind me, we can discuss this. I think also Quran in every age reveals part of itself. Therefore, you shouldn't be stuck with one translation of the Quran. Even if you have the best translation which is possible in 21st century, in 22nd century we have to have another translation because Quran reveals itself. The same is with tafsir. But even for translation, it's not that this person who is translating today, he's not knowledgeable. No. I think Quran reveals itself. There are things that are not yet due for release. Allah releases part of the reality of the Quran gradually. Because normally I think we don't have this understanding. Normally we think that Quran has been revealed altogether and ulama gradually develop their understanding. I don't think it's like this. I think there are certain things that Allah has planned to be revealed gradually. And there are certain things that Allah has kept for people of Akhir Zaman. Only people of that time will understand it. Not because only their understanding increases. It's also because the Quran is revealing itself. So it's not finished. It's an ongoing process. Although the words of Quran are not changed. But the disclosure is increasing. It's like, if you have a very, very valuable jewelry, and little by little you remove the veils, and people gradually can have better exposure to that jewelry. I have this idea. Maybe you don't agree, maybe you agree, but we can discuss, inshallah. But there is evidence for that. So there is a way of talking about this. Another thing that we have to discuss is about being a speaking Quran. Quran natiq. No, a spoken, no. A speaking Quran means a Quran which speaks. We have a Quran which is silent. We have a Quran which speaks, like Imams, which are a speaking Quran.
Speak about the Quran.
That's another thing. To speak about the Quran is, yes, it's true. But to be a Quran which speaks. The other thing that we should talk about, inshallah, is about loving the Quran. How to love the Quran. And another thing that is related also to the Quran is not to eat by the Quran. Istikal bil Quran means not to use Quranic verses or Quran itself as a means of income. Of course, you can teach Quran and maybe people give you money, but in the sense that you, of course, this is again something that we need to discuss. In the sense that you fix a price for Quran. This is wrong. You can say, I teach you 10 verses of the Quran and the charge for these 10 verses is, for example, 10,000 tuman or 100,000 tuman. This is wrong. To put a price for Quran. Even if it is, for example, a lot. Because, it's about learning and teaching. You can discuss it there or general, because it can be also about huffaz of Quran, about reciters of Quran who don't teach Quran, just recite and want to take money. Or maybe even those who write Quran as a calligraphy or something. So to use Quran as a source of income in the sense that you yourself forget the value of the Quran and fix a price for the Quran. You know, I think this is the meaning. Because, for example, maybe you are a teacher of the Quran and you need some money. But you never say, this is the value of my teaching of Quran. Teaching of Quran has no value. You cannot say this is the value. You know, maybe I told you once that a very famous reciter of the Quran was asking people lots of money when they invited him. They told him, why do you ask so much money? He said, because Allah says, لا تشتروا بآياتي ثمنا قليلا. So I have to ask lots of money, not a little. Yeah. But the misconception here is, it's not a matter of how much you ask. Even if you ask the whole dunya, it's samanan qalila. You must not make anything saman for the Quran. Not that because that was little amount. The whole concept of putting a price for the Quran is wrong. Okay? Do you agree or not? We can discuss. So this is also another thing that inshallah we have to discuss. And there are some also marginal issues that inshallah we will gradually talk. This, yeah, so about, when we talk about recitation of the Quran, inshallah we will talk about reflection on the Quran, that this recitation must be with reflection, and about understanding the Quran also we talk. So there we can talk about the hermeneutics of the Quran. These are the things that I have been thinking and I made notes, but maybe you can add if you think there is anything else related to a spiritual encounter with the Quran. Yeah.
What did you do with
This is about getting guidance from the Quran. So in that part we can talk about this, whether it is good to use Quran for istikhara or not. Yeah, this is a good point. We can talk about it. Anything else? Okay, so this is about Quran being fresh. Quran being fresh. So even for modern world, modern life, Quran offers its plan for life.
Now there is another aspect of Quran, which is whether it is inferior to or superior classes, or they are the same. But there have been several actual.
That is about the significance of Quran.
What's some other things?
That, which we talked in the first session, we'll talk again. Yeah.
In comparison to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else?
Now it's about original Quran. The original.
Yeah, this is when we talk about being from Endallah, then we will talk about this.
That absolute.
Where does Quran come from?
The absolute being.
Absolute being is God.
No, the absolute being of Quran. That in some hadiths, on the day of judgment, the person can't.
Yeah, we will talk. So when we talk about significance of Quran, we will talk about it. What do you mean? That doesn't relate to this approach, because we want to know how to benefit from the Quran and how to encounter the Quran. What other people say about Quran is another thing. Maybe they believe, maybe they don't believe, they accept, they reject. Yeah, so when we talk about teaching Quran, then we talk about who are the main teachers of the Quran.
One thing, repetitions of Quran, some points are repeated a lot. Why such a book which is somehow brief must point to very basic things.
That is about the content of the Quran. That's different. We don't want. We are not yet talking about the content of the Quran. This is everything we have to know, so that we approach the Quran in the best way. Then the content comes later. I think our problem is that we mostly talk about content of the Quran. We talk always about, for example, tafsir of the Quran or reading the Quran. We don't talk that much about this side of Quran. And those who talk about Quran, again, they don't talk about this. They talk about something in ulum al-Quran that which is, again, not Quran. This is something in middle which is missing. It's neither ulum al-Quran in the normal sense that they talk about ulum al-Quran, and it's nor tafsir. It's about the way we have to approach the Quran, the way we have to have high regard for the Quran. This is, in other words, in order to save Quran from being mahjur. Quran must not be mahjur. We have to understand the value of the Quran and make constant reference to the Quran, so that Quran is, like a person that everyone knows, everyone respects, everyone appreciates, everyone visits. Sometimes you have an alim and no one knows him. Therefore, no one asks about him. No one says, how do you feel? How are you? That alim is there, lonely. Sorry, I think he had first.
About the ethics of Quran in our life, spiritual life and physical life. For example, some verses have some effect for our life. We mentioned some verses have a special effect.
Can we include the post how Quran is full expression?
What do you mean?
For example, when you recite the verse of Surah Kahf for sleeping and just very useful for this effect of some verse. And keeping Quran with ourselves is useful for keeping us from some.
Yeah, about carrying Quran I mentioned.
Yes, carrying and other verses have some special effect, some special verses.
Yeah.
Have some verses.
Physically
and spiritually.
Yeah, we can say about the spiritual effect of some verses of the Quran or Quran in general. Some verses can have a specific effect, some can be just because of the Quran.
Some verses useful for marriage. If you decide it some time it's good for marriage or something.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Having good
Not marriage, really. This kind of discussion is very interesting.
Yeah, but in this type of discussion, you have to be careful. Because sometimes... Pardon?
It is missed in any book and hasn't been discussed. Yet I haven't seen any book to discuss this kind of issue.
No, there are books of, these people who write dua and this kind of thing. They say you put this verse and, then you become pregnant.
But it hasn't been discussed.
But you have to be careful, because some of these things maybe are not authentic. Maybe, for example, something has worked for you. It doesn't mean that it works for everyone else. So I'm not against it, but I'm just saying you have to be careful. Yeah, I'm not denying it. I'm just saying be careful, Don't just go after what is famous, what is, said by people, repeated by people. As an alim, as a scholar, even if something has worked for you, when you want to give a general advice to people, you have to be careful. Like for example, istikhara, for example. Maybe istikhara for you works. But this is not something good that you go in member and encourage people, for everything do istikhara. Maybe you yourself are doing this, but this is not the way that Ahlul Bayt have been teaching people, that for solving their problems, they should do istikhara. Some people do tens of istikhara every day. But I don't think this is the way that we are supposed to do. You know what I mean? So as a scholar, we have to make everything very systematic, very clear, with a proper methodology, so that you can defend it. There can be some personal experiences that is good for yourself. Don't generalize it. Do you agree, Mr. Mafta?
Sometimes you want to say that we can use the right first to work properly.
Yeah. Yes.
You have looking at the Quran and you can have fear in the Quran.
This is when we talk about recitation of the Quran, and we can talk about hearing the Quran. Yeah. Yeah. I want you to think more, to be more creative about also methods of reflecting on the Quran. If someone asks you what is the best method of reading the Quran, normally we only mention some kind of etiquettes. For example, we say you have to have wuzu, you have to face qibla. These are very general. But for example, how should I reflect? How should I contemplate? Shall I read the Quran with sadness or with joy? Shall I, for example, have first some questions in mind and then go to the Quran? Or I should go to Quran without any question in mind? So there are things that we can develop as a kind of technique, for reading the Quran. Like for example, Imam Ali says in Khutbat Muttaqeen, "Amma al-layl fasafuna aqdamahum talina al-ajza' al-Quran yurattilunahu tartila yuhazzinuna bihi anfusahum wa yastathiruna bihi dawa'a da'ihim." This is a kind of technique. So we have to understand this technique. Also, we have to see whether we can generalize this, so that whoever recites the Quran should recite in the way that people become sad. Or this is when you, in private yourself, in the middle of night, you recite the Quran. Not that when we have a meeting, you read the Quran in the way that everyone becomes sad. So these are the things that we have to discuss. And you don't see that much discussion about these things. Maybe a little bit here, a little bit there, There is no whole, for example, book, or at least even maybe a chapter of a book about these kind of things.
How the holiness and sacredness of the Quran. For example, Jesus says that you cannot touch the handwriting of Quran when you are not the believer.
Yeah.
You can touch the places that you are not reading. It is not discussed.
We have it here. We have, when we talk about looking at the Quran, carrying the Quran, we have about about touching the Quran, and physical touching and spiritual touching. You need wuzu, and you need also tahara. La yamassuhu illa al-mutahharun. It's not just to make wuzu. Yes.
vice versa. When you want to study physics, then you use Quran. Or when you want to interpret Quran, then you use physics and other science. We use Quran better, more deeper.
Isn't this about the content?
And we discussed this kind of, it is too close to significance of Quran.
Yeah, about significance we have, about Quran being a book for life, we have. But if you want to go into a detailed discussion about whether we can, for example, understand a theory about physics, for example, from the Quran, I think then you have to go to the content. But generally speaking, yes, this is about Quran being a book of life. And we can discuss there that we don't expect everything to be taken from the Quran by us. For example, engineering, mathematics, physics, chemistry. This is not what we expect from the Quran. This is hudan lil muttaqin, not a dictionary for those who want the meaning of the terms, or an encyclopedia for those who want to know about geography, so on and so forth. Pardon? لكل شيء, which they need for their guidance, not تبيانا لكل شيء that you can think of. I don't limit it. This is تناسب بین حکم و موضوع. There must be a relation between subject and the predicate. When Allah sends a book for guidance and He says كل شيء, كل شيء for guidance. Not that Quran is a book of biology, a book of geology, a book of geometry, a book of astronomy. If you make such a claim, then people ask you, okay, tell me this rule, for example, in physics from Quran. And you don't find also this type of things to be a common reference in hadith, that Ahlul Bayt said to people, don't go to any, for example, teacher, don't go to any, for example, place for learning. Quran teaches you everything. You don't need medicine, we don't need physics, we don't need chemistry, just read the Quran. Even if we say that the Quran somehow addresses these issues, it's not in the surface, it's not in the apparent meaning, it's not in the ma'na zahri. Maybe the deep layers of the Quran, like the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt, they can understand something. But that is not for us. That is not what Allah expects us from the Quran. And I think, with all the respect that I have for you, this is a misuse of Quran. But still I have respect. If some people say, we want to have an institute in Qom to learn medicine from Quran, to learn, for example, physics from Quran, mathematics from the Quran, I don't think this is a good use of Quran. I think this is... It's like, for example, Prophet. Maybe this is a good example. The Prophet is here. Instead of asking Prophet about religion, about God, about spirituality, about Tawbah, about, how to remember Allah, then you bring your questions about engineering and mathematics and physics to the Prophet. This is a misuse of the Prophet. That are marginal. Maybe all the things that the Prophet has said about these things is very little compared to the religious side, a spiritual side. Or maybe sometime, for example, you don't have any choice. You are dying and the Prophet is here. So you say, the Prophet, I have this illness. What should I do? This is a matter of emergency. Otherwise, if everything is normal, what is the proper usage of the Prophet? When Amir al-Mu'minin said, Saluni qabla an tafqaduni, what type of questions could be the best questions? Questions about engineering? That was the best question to ask the Prophet, Imam Ali? I'm not saying that is not the good question. I say maybe he gives you the answer. Or maybe he doesn't give you answer. Like he didn't give answer to that Ash'as. He didn't give answer to him, even he has how many pieces of hair, is there. But he has the answer. But he wants to say, ask me good things. Pardon? So, with respect to the Prophet, Imams, and the Quran, we should ask questions which are the main concern of them. What is the main concern of the Prophet? What is the main concern of Imamah? Is guidance. Is leading people towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So your questions must be this. The same is with the Quran.
It reminds us of how to introduce Quran to non-Muslims.
Yeah.
How to introduce, maybe
So when we talk about significance of the Quran, then this is helping to understand how to introduce the Quran to Muslims and non-Muslims. Do you have anything extra in mind, or? Then that is content. If you go into the verses, it's content. But if you want to explain to a non-Muslim about the Quran as a book, so you have to talk about the significance of the Quran as a word of God, as an everlasting miracle, something which is always fresh, something which never can be outdated. You can never exhaust all the meanings of the Quran. These are the things that you can talk.
Right now you said that Ahlul Bayt of Muhammad never said that don't go there and come to us for ilm. But we have such hadith that شرق أو غرب لن تجد إلا سعيا إلا شيئا خرج من عندنا, which means that you should come to us for ilm.
Religious knowledge. This means religious knowledge. Otherwise, the Prophet said, "Utlubul ilm walau bis-sin." For physics, chemistry, you can go to China. But for religion, there is no need to go to China. For religion, you go to Qom, you go to Najaf, you go to... Yeah.
Not do some kind of action for Mahjub.
The whole thing is this. The whole discussion that we have is how to save Quran from being forgotten or abandoned. This is our main concern. How to know Quran, how to respect the Quran, how to benefit Quran, how to be friend of Quran. So it's a whole to avoid Quran being forgotten or abandoned.
Used by people at that time, like they were reciting Quran, they were memorizing Quran, but special things that didn't happen in the time of the Prophet. What was this special action of?
First of all, it's not only about the time of the Prophet. When the Prophet said, it doesn't mean that only in that time and then later it was okay. This is a general complaint about Ummah, a Islamic nation. It's not only about that society. Yeah? Even today, Quran is mahjur. Even if there are hundreds of thousands of reciters of Quran and memorizers of the Quran and teachers of the Quran, still Quran can be mahjur. Why? Because you don't see the light of Quran in their life. You don't see they practice the Quran. They just talk about the Quran. Yeah? It's like what? It's like, for example, if you have a town. Sometimes I use this example. If you have a town, every street of this town is named as one chapter of the Quran. Instead of saying Safaiya, Dor Shar, say this is, for example, Al Imran, this is An'am. Then every, for example, house is named after one verse of the Quran. All banners of the Quran. Everyone speaks, for example, from Quran. But there is no akhlaq of Quran. Quran is mahjur. The problem is that we want to, save Quran from mahjuriya just by something physically. We do it physically. The only time Quran can be saved from mahjuriya is when your heart is a place of Quran, not your tongue or your mosque or your streets or your walls. You can have 10 channels of the Quran, but when you go to shop and buy something, Quran is not there. Wailun lil mutaffifin is written there, but that person instead of 1 kilo gives you, for example, 900 grams. Quran is mahjur. So the concept of mahjuriya is a very important concept. And I think even today Quran is mahjur. Pardon? Yes, among the Muslims. Sometimes maybe among Muslims is more mahjur than non-Muslims.
Charlie has another example.
Yeah.
Says you are ill, for example, and someone has given you an address, given your address, and this address leads you to the doctor. But you say, you and your friend said, let's read it, let's write it, let's memorize it. You're doing all of these things, but you don't go to that.
Yeah. Or you have a medicine. You read the medicine, you keep the medicine, and you kiss the medicine. But you don't take the medicine. Yeah? Taking medicine to eat. So you don't take the medicine, so it doesn't work. You put medicine on your eyes, put it back. That medicine must be taken, must be absorbed. Yeah. Okay, so these are some of the things that, inshallah, if we have time, we should discuss. And you can think about it. If you come across something else, you can add. Yeah.
And talk about some rules about Quran. For example, for carrying Quran, we have some hadith in this matter. For carrying Quran, reciting Quran. In every point, we have some hadith
about the etiquette.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the philosophy of these hadiths, Beyond of these hadiths, we have something about, for example, some of women can recite some verse of Quran. Why? Or what is wrong with them, or what is there that they can't recite some verse of Quran? The philosophy of this rule of this hadith, I think, is one.
Of course, if we understand. Because some of these things maybe we don't understand, but some maybe we can at least guess or speculate, something. Yeah. Inshallah. If you have some idea, then you can mention, inshallah, when we reach that point. And if you don't mind, please also switch on the line. Okay. So let us stop this outline and start with the discussion about the significance of the Quran. One of the things that we have about the Quran is this beautiful hadith from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, finally from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. It's from Kafi, volume 2, page 604. Man utiya al-Quran فظن أن أحدا من الناس أوتي أفضل مما أوتي. The one who has been given the Quran and he thinks someone else has been given something better than what he has been given. Okay? فقد عظم ما حقر الله وحقر ما عظم الله. This person has made something which is not significant in the sight of Allah significant, and something which is insignificant he has made significant. No, something which is significant he has made it insignificant. So against Allah's way of measuring things and weighing things, we realize from the end of hadith that Imam or the Prophet is referring to dunya, because ma haqqar Allah is dunya. Yeah, Allah says dunya is mata'un qalil. If someone has been given the Quran but someone else has been given a big house or lots of money, and the one who has been given the Quran thinks that the one who has been given money has been given more, he has made something which is not important, not significant for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala significant. Okay? So, nothing in dunya can be measured and weighed against the Quran and say this outweighs the Quran. Nothing outweighs the Quran. What is the meaning of the one who has been given the Quran? Yes.
How can you say only means something related to dunya? Should not be a piece of knowledge which is not the knowledge.
Because knowledge is not made haqir by Allah. In the Quran, for example, like hikmah. If you have been given wisdom, Allah says, وَمَنْ يُؤْتَ الْحِكْمَةَ فَقَدْ أُوتِيَ خَيْرًا كَثِيرًا. Or about knowledge, Allah says, يَرْفَعِ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ وَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ دَرَجَاتٍ. But those things which are made haqir are dunya. And anything which is related to dunya. If the knowledge is worldly knowledge, yes. But if its knowledge is a religious knowledge, or if it is hikmah, this is not little. No, I'm not saying, but I'm saying hadith is not talking about that. The one who has hikmah knows that Quran must not be measured with anything else. This is about something from dunya. But then we have another hadith which goes further. But before I go to another hadith, what does it mean, man uti al-Quran? Yeah. What does it mean? I don't think it means every Muslim who has Quran. Man uti al-Quran, it doesn't mean that every Muslim who has Quran. I think man uti al-Quran means the one who has been given tawfiq of being at the service of Quran. Like for example, a teacher of the Quran, a scholar of the Quran, a memorizer of the Quran, the one who has some kind of a special relation with the Quran. Man uti al-Quran. Okay? Otherwise, if you are just a Muslim and you don't have any relation with the Quran, you are not given the Quran. You lack the Quran. So, the one who has been given the Quran means the one who has been given the tawfiq of being in relation with the Quran.
Shows that this kind of person who otherwise can succeed to recite Quran, to be close to the Quran, this kind of person doesn't encounter Quran in such a way.
Why? There are many people who, even many talaba who don't have money, sometimes maybe they think, oh, instead of spending my life on studying Hose, I wish I had at acquired money.
So it's better to say that Uzziah is the normal person, huh? Yeah.
No. Someone who has been given something of the Quran. Someone who has not been given anything from the Quran, his hand is empty. You know, a Muslim who doesn't know how to read the Quran, how to learn Quran, how to recite the Quran, how to memorize the Quran, what has been he given? He doesn't have anything. His hand is empty. He cannot say, because our Prophet was given Quran, I am rich. You have nothing. Quran will complain. Man utiya al-Quran means someone who has gained something from the Quran. Otherwise, you are poor. You don't have anything.
You can describe it as a gift. For example, there are two persons, you give them Quran as a gift, and another person receives something else, and that person should really be sad because.
No, I don't think. Just giving a copy of Quran?
Not the copy. Quran.
For example, I have two sons. To one of them, I give a copy of Quran. To other son, I give 10 million to one. I say, you should be happy because I have given you a copy of. No, because I have just given him a copy, a physical copy, so he has not been given the Quran. But if I have two sons, I teach one of them Quran and I give money to other one. The one that I taught him Quran must be happier. You understand? I taught him Quran. I have given him knowledge of the Quran. But if I have just given him a copy of Quran, he has a right to be sad. He says, give me 1 million to man, I buy 10 copies of the Quran and then sort out some of my problems. Yeah? You have to be fair. Okay. There is another hadith from Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam, finally quoting the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Avalaysa. This is very powerful. I think it's in Al-Kafi, but you can check. I think it's in Al-Kafi, volume 1. Avalaysa Kitabu Rabbi. Very powerful. Are you ready? Avalaysa Kitabu Rabbi afdal al-ashya ba'da Allah azza wa jal. Isn't the book of my Lord the best of the things after Allah himself? It's very powerful. So after Allah, the best thing is Quran. وَالَّذِي بَعَثَنِي بِالْحَقِّ نَبِيًّا. Then Imam Ali was told by Prophet. This is Prophet telling Imam Ali, by the one who has truthfully made me a prophet, if you don't put the Quran together, you don't compile it with, care and in a very careful way, it will not be done like this. وَالَّذِي بَعَثَنِي بِالْحَقِّ نَبِيًّا لَإِن لَمْ تَجْمَعْهُ بِإِتْقَانٍ لَمْ يُجْمَعْ أَبَدًا فَخَصَّنِيَ اللَّهُ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ بِذَلِكَ مِنْ دُونِ الصَّحَابَةِ. Have you got this? Did you find it? Only in Al-Burhan? Okay. So, the Prophet, to encourage Imam Ali that he should do this, first explained for him the significance of the Quran. That Quran is the most important thing, the best thing after Allah himself. So you have to put all your energy on compiling the Quran. And according to some hadith, after the Prophet passed away, Imam Ali alayhi salam, when the things happened about successorship, anything, Imam Ali spent time, and I think he didn't, even the hadith says he didn't go except for Jum'ah, something like this. He spent time at home putting these Quranic verses together. Of course, there is a discussion about compiling the Quran. Who compiled the Quran? Maybe if you have time, we talk about it. This is not my concern at the moment. My concern is the sentence before this. Not about compiling, about أَوَلَيْسَ كِتَابُ رَبِّي أَفْضَلَ الْأَشْيَاءِ بَعْدَ اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ. After Allah, the book of Allah is the most important. The other hadith is the hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which says, لا يعذب الله قلبا وعى القرآن. We should talk about this concept also later. What does it mean? وعي القرآن. To understand the Quran, to grasp the Quran. لا يعذب الله قلبا وعى القرآن. If your qalb becomes wa'a, it becomes a container of the Quran. You grasp the Quran by your heart. And I think this is more than memorizing. Do you accept? It's not just to memorize the Quran. Va'al Quran. It's more than hafiz al-Quran. Quran fills your heart. When you memorize something, although in English we say, reading by heart, but indeed you are filling your mind, not your heart. Yeah? Do you accept or not? Maybe you memorize, for example, 1,000 names of God. It doesn't mean God has filled your heart. Maybe you memorize the whole Quran. It doesn't mean that Quran has filled your heart. It's just mind. But Va'al Quran means Quran fills your heart. You understand the difference? If Quran fills your heart, then Allah will not punish this heart. لا يعذب الله قلبا وعى القرآن. Why Allah doesn't punish this heart? Because this heart is pure. Yeah? Not that this heart, is a sinful heart and still Allah doesn't punish it. If Quran fills your heart, then you are changed. You become a good person. You accept? Yeah. There is another hadith which is very familiar, and Ali alayhi salam and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, خِيَارُكُمْ مَنْ تَعَلَّمَ الْقُرْآنَ وَعَلَّمَهُ. Inshallah, we'll talk about teaching and learning later, but we want to understand the significance of the Quran from this hadith. Why the best of you is the one who teach and learn the Quran. To understand this better, you have to remember that among people, the best people are ulama and muttaqin. It seems that in Islam, there are two merits that can elevate people. One is to be alim, one is to be muttaqi. Of course, don't say, what about alim who is fasiq? That is a problem. But, pardon? Yeah. No, you can be both. But I'm saying, alim by itself is better than jahil. هل يستوي الذين يعلمون والذين لا يعلمون? It's not like money. You don't find any place in the Quran says, هل يستوي الأغنياء والفقراء? Even if there was such a verse, it meant otherwise. It didn't mean fuqara are less. If there was such a verse, it meant that fuqara are better. But we don't have such a verse. There is no verse that those who are more beautiful are not like those who are not that beautiful, or those who are white are not like those who are black. There is no such a thing. But when it comes to knowledge, Allah says, هل يستوي الذين يعلمون والذين لا يعلمون. And also about taqwa. Inna akramakum indallah atqakum. And then if there is alim who is muttaqi, then you don't know how valuable he becomes. If it's alim and muttaqi. يَرْفَعِ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ وَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ درجات. These utul ilm are ulama who are muttaqi, pious. Okay. So, the people who have knowledge are very high. Then, among people who have knowledge, those who have knowledge of the Quran are the highest. خياركم من تعلم القرآن وعلمه. It means that these are better than those who have no knowledge and better than those who have knowledge but knowledge of other things. You understand? Better than those who have no knowledge and better even than those who have knowledge of other things. For example, those who have knowledge of psychology, but not psychology from Quran, psychology independent from Quran. Or even philosophy independent from Quran. Fiqh independent from Quran. Yeah, it's very difficult to say these things. Anything, pardon? It's possible. Anything independent from Quran, it can be a value. But compared to the knowledge of Quran, is less. You accept? I am sad to tell you, there are people who study tafsir independent from Quran. Do you accept? Look at what is happening. Sometimes, we get stuck with just the surface of the things. It's like, for example, sometimes we talk, days and days and days about things which are not important. According to the Quran itself, they are not important. We waste our time on talking about something which is somehow related to the Quran, but not about the Quran itself. Like I am thirsty. Then for few weeks you talk about, oxygen, hydrogen, about, pipe line of water, how to refine water. Give me water. I don't have time to waste on these things. Any discussion, even about the Quran, which doesn't quench your thirst for light and guidance, it's far from Quran. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam said, that famous person, I don't want to mention the name, ما ورثك الله من كتابه من القرآن ومن كتابه حرفا. It's very important. That person maybe was reading Quran by heart. Maybe he was teaching Quran. But Imam Sadiq said, even one harf, maybe one letter, one word, one concept of Quran, you have not been given. So don't be surprised if I say people study tafsir, but independent from Quran. Pardon? من كتابه حرفا, yeah? It's very important. And there are people, I don't say this, to encourage you, to discourage you to study, but there are people who don't know any of these things. But Quran is in their hearts. But their knowledge is limited, and also sometimes maybe they cannot help other people. So we Talaba, alhamdulillah, have been given to tawfiq to study, but we shouldn't think that just studying by itself sorts out all the problems. First, what do you study? And second, why do you study? Do you study something just to pass the exams? Or you study something so that you gain from Quran the reality of the Quran, the truth of the Quran? And I think the reality of Quran cannot be gained only by mind. The reality of Quran must be gained by heart as well. Mind and heart, not just mind. If you come to the class of Quran just by your mind, it's not enough. Don't put your heart somewhere else. You must bring your heart as well. So we have to register both the mind of people and the heart. Is the heart here or not? The heart is somewhere else.
As we study in college, to learn the Quran, Taala the Quran, in comparison with the Hadith, the Prophet said that al-ilmu ilmun, ilmu al-ahkam, ilmu al-ahkam, al-ilmu bi-ilmun al-ahkam. Shows that ilmu al-ahkam means learning the Quran.
But even among different religious science, everything which is about Quran is the best.
Maybe the religious science is exactly the Quran. Not
Let me tell you something. If, for example, today, one ma'soom, for example, comes, what will he teach? Pardon? No, maybe that's a Kharij. I mean the topic. Kitab. Even he doesn't teach them hadith. He teach them Quran. But what he says will be hadith. What he says will be hadith, but he doesn't teach hadith. He teaches Quran. So hadith is about Quran. The Prophet didn't come to teach hadith. The Prophet came to teach Quran, but then his teaching becomes hadith. This is the point. Sometimes we think the Prophet has come to teach hadith. No, the Prophet has come to teach the Quran, and then his teaching is hadith. So hadith is not like Quran. Hadith is like footnote, like a comment on the Quran. Quran is the main text and the only text. How many texts we have? Only Quran. Everything else is around the Quran. Is to teach the Quran, to explain the Quran, at the service of Quran. Okay? And I think these are the things that we, followers of Ahlul Bayt, Alhamdulillah, have many things to say, but we don't say it, unfortunately, and therefore we are accused that these people don't appreciate Quran. Part of it's because we don't say these things. If we say, all these things about Quran that we have received from Prophet and Ahlul Bayt, they will realize that no one like us honors the Quran. At least in theory. In practice, no Muslim, unfortunately, not no Muslim, but no community. There are always good individuals, but whether it is in the East or West, Sunni, Shia, we don't have a really Quranic community. But there are good people. Okay. The other thing is this hadith from, I have here many hadiths, but just another hadith is Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam said, Zalikal Quran fastantiquh. That is the Quran. Like Zalikal Kitab means something which is in a very high position, therefore you say Zalika. Yeah, means you are referring to something which is far. Fastantiquh. Ask Quran to speak to you. It's very bad. You invite an alim and then you speak. Whenever that alim wants to speak, you don't let him to speak. You just speak and speak. Let that alim speak. When you have Quran, you shouldn't speak. You should let Quran speak. Okay? Fastantiqu. Ask Quran to speak. Please, speak to me.
in this case, just Ahlul Bayt is not speaking Quran. Quran says he is speaking.
But the problem is walan yantiq lakum. But the Quran does not speak to you. Why? Because you don't really ask him to speak. You say, please speak, but before Quran starts to speak, you start to speak. you want to speak yourself in the Quran. You know, you impose your ideas, therefore Quran doesn't speak to you. وَلَنْ يَنْتِقَ لَكُمْ. The Quran will not speak to you because the Quran doesn't feel comfortable with you. Yeah, Quran feels you are not mahram. You are not trusted. أُخْبِرُكُمْ عَنْ. Therefore I speak and inform you on behalf of the Quran. Imam Ali. Yeah, of course. That is impurity that causes this problem. Oh, that is impurity. If you reflect why we are impure, the reason is because we, instead of acting upon the Quran, we do our own things and then we want Quran to just justify that. This is the reason for impurity. أخبركم عنه. I inform you on behalf of them. So Imam Ali becomes a speaking Quran, like a translator of the Quran, a spokesman of the Quran. Yeah? إن فيه علم ما مضى وعلم ما يأتي إلى يوم القيامة. Everything which happened in the past and everything that is going to happen in future. How is it possible? Quran is, fixed. The size of Quran is fixed. The things which are going to happen, are so much. This is another evidence for what I said. That although the words are not increasing, but Quran gradually speaks. It speaks more and more. This is explanatory power of the Quran that can explain things which happen in future. But the problem is that we don't understand.
What does Imam mean by the word Quran includes everything, every science?
Yeah, he says.
Science?
No, he doesn't say every science. Ilm here doesn't mean science, knowledge. If he says science, it's different. Knowledge. Imam says, علم ما مضى وعلم ما يأتي إلى يوم القيامة وحكم ما بينكم. حكم ما بين means the ruling, means about judgment. وبيان ما أصبحتم فيه تختلفون. كان الناس أمة واحدة فبعث الله النبي مباشر. Why? Because they started doing اختلاف. What type of اختلاف? Not اختلاف about physics or chemistry. اختلاف about religion. Okay? So in the Quran there is explanation of what you disagree. فَلَوْ سَأَلْتُمْ عَنْهُ لَعَلَّمْتُكُمْ. If you ask me about those things, I will teach you. So Imam Ali receives his knowledge from Quran, from of course the Prophet, from Quran, but then he explains to us. But the knowledge comes from Quran. The main source of knowledge is Quran. Yes.
If you have been asked this question, how you can answer? You said that Quran includes just guidance, not other sciences or other things. You said it is not necessary to include.
This is not what we expect.
Yes. But Imam Ali said, "Ilma ma khan."
Ma madha.
Ma madha. And in the future. It shows that it doesn't include just the guidance issues. It includes everything.
No, everything about guidance or... No. I told you 2 points. One was that, first, it's about guidance. And secondly, maybe other things also can be understood, but not from the surface, not from al-ma'na al-zahiri. Maybe Prophet from bottom of the Quran can see the whole world. Don't be surprised. Quran is like a mirror. It's a manifestation of Allah, as we will explain. Maybe in Quran you can see the creation of God, but it's not me and you. the Prophet can see in the Quran other things as well. But this is not what me and you expect from the Quran. It's too big for us. It's a very big fish for us. We cannot take this fish. For us, guidance is important. There is something that, okay, let us stop. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.